Most people assume late summer is the time to wrap up garden planting. The heat is intense, spring growth has slowed, and conventional wisdom says to wait until next year. It sounds logical, but surprisingly, August is actually the absolute secret weapon month for establishing aggressive, fast-spreading perennials. They take advantage of warm soil temperatures, build unbreakable root structures before winter, wake up months earlier in spring, and in some cases, deliver dense, weed-blocking ground cover in a fraction of the usual time. Before we jump in, please do us a huge favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video with a fellow gardener, and drop a comment below telling us the exact city or region you're watching from today. We love seeing where our gardening community is growing. That's because late summer planting gives home gardeners something spring planting often cannot: speed. Warm soil speeds up root colonization, cooler autumn nights reduce water stress, autumn rains eliminate constant manual maintenance, and the ability to dictate your landscapes cover years ahead of schedule. In today's video, we're counting down 9 fast-spreading perennials that turn August planting into year-round landscape lushness. And stay until the end, because the final plant on this list is a rugged, evergreen powerhouse that turns barren bare spots into vibrant purple-flowered carpets even in deep shade. Let's get started. At number 9, we have Creeping Thyme. Most people picture Creeping Thyme as a delicate, finicky herb grown in small rock gardens. But surprisingly, late summer planting often produces a far denser, tougher ground cover than spring planting ever could. Here's why. Spring planting is rarely perfect. It contains sudden heat waves, unpredictable moisture fluctuations, and intense weed competition that force young thyme plugs to stall or dry out completely. Late summer planting solves that problem immediately. Soil temperatures in August act like a natural incubator for root extension without the extreme top growth stress of summer shoots. The result is an explosive root network ready to carpet your soil the second spring arrives. Another huge advantage is weed suppression. As it spreads, it forms an interwoven, aromatic mat that completely blocks sun from reaching latent weed seeds. That's one reason home gardeners love replacing high-maintenance lawn patches with it. Busy landscapers also love its extreme drought tolerance once established. Its modified, tiny leaves hold moisture with incredible efficiency. You get a vibrant, fragrant, foot-traffic-tolerant carpet with minimal summer watering. Even better, late summer establishment encourages early spring blooming. The roots mature over winter, allowing the plant to produce vibrant pink and purple pollinators-pleasing flowers weeks earlier. It's one more example of how August establishment provides structural density that spring planting often can't match. Sometimes the secret to a lush landscape isn't planting during the traditional spring rush. It's choosing the exact window when root development outpaces foliage demands. Coming in at number 8, we have Sweet Woodruff. Most people picture Sweet Woodruff as a slow-growing shade plant confined to damp, pristine forest floors. But surprisingly, setting plugs in August often produces a much faster, fully interconnected woodland carpet than early spring setups ever could. Here's why. Spring soil is cold and waterlogged. It contains low biological activity, poor aeration, and chilly ground temperatures that force woodland ground covers to sit dormant for weeks while weeds take over. August planting solves that problem immediately. The warmth lingering in the soil encourages immediate underground runner propagation. The result is rapid creeping stem extension before the first hard freeze. Another huge advantage is its ability to thrive under competitive tree roots. It glides through tricky soil where turfgrass refuses to grow. That's why it's the ultimate solution for bare patches underneath large maple or oak trees. Busy gardeners also appreciate its natural pest resistance. Deer and rabbits consistently pass over its aromatic, star-shaped foliage. You get pristine green coverage without constantly spraying repellents. Even better, its whorled foliage creates a natural living mulch that retains soil moisture for surrounding shrubs. It actively builds a cooler microclimate around neighboring root systems. It's one more example of how targeted late summer planting provides natural soil protection that bare wood chips often can't match. Sometimes the secret to filling tricky shade isn't fighting tree root competition. It's establishing spreading ground covers when soil heat gives roots the ultimate head start. Moving down to number 7, we have Sedum Dragon's Blood, 2-row stonacrop. At number 7, we have Sedum Dragon's Blood. Most people picture succulent ground covers as slow, tender plants suitable only for indoor pots or mild coastal climates. But surprisingly, tucking stonacrop into the garden during late summer often produces a far more resilient, brilliantly colored outdoor mat than spring planting ever could. Here's why. Spring-planted succulents often struggle with cold, oversaturated soil. It contains lingering frost dampness, fungal rot risks, and root stagnation that force succulent cuttings to decay before setting roots. Late summer planting solves that problem immediately. Warm, well-draining soil triggers instantaneous root anchoring from every stem node touching the earth. The result is rapid horizontal spread and rich red foliage coloration. Another huge advantage is winter visual interest. Its fleshy leaves shift into deep blood-red shades as temperatures drop, keeping garden beds attractive all winter long. That's why smart landscapers use it to line stone paths and garden borders. Busy homeowners also love its virtually indestructible nature. It thrives in poor, rocky, and sandy soils with practically zero fertilizer requirements. You get rich color and dense weed protection on dry slopes where nothing else survives. Sometimes the secret to permanent erosion control isn't buying expensive landscaping fabric. It's letting fast-spreading succulent roots lock down dry soil. At number 6, we have Ajuga bugleweed. Most people picture Ajuga as a small, isolated accent plant for rockeries. But surprisingly, putting Ajuga in the ground in August often produces a much faster, weed-choking ground carpet than standard spring installation ever could. Here's why. Spring installations face intense weed emergence. Spring beds contain aggressive crabgrass seeds, broadleaf competition, and nutrient robbing that force young Ajuga stolons to get shaded out. August planting solves that problem immediately. As spring weeds die back, warm August soil allows Ajuga to send out dozens of creeping stolons undisturbed. The result is a thick, glossy mat of deep bronze and purple foliage before winter sets in. Another huge advantage is erosion control on slopes. The stolons root wherever they touch the ground, creating a web-like grid that anchors loose topsoil. That's one reason it's ideal for steep, hard-to-mow banks. Busy homeowners also appreciate its ability to grow in almost any light condition, from full sun to heavy shade. It adjusts its foliage density smoothly without losing vigor. You get complete ground coverage regardless of shifting tree canopies. Even better, it sends up striking blue-violet flower spikes in early spring. These blooms provide critical early food sources for emerging bees. It's one more example of how August ground cover installation provides long-term ecological balance that bare mulch beds often can't match. Sometimes the secret to covering difficult slopes isn't heavy lawn machinery. It's strategic planting of self-rooting perennial runners. Coming in at number 5, we have Mazus Reptans. At number 5, we have Mazus Reptans. Most people picture high-traffic ground covers as delicate mosses that collapse under the slightest footstep. But surprisingly, establishing Mazus in August often produces a far tougher, lawn-replacing carpet than spring sowings ever could. Here's why. Spring-sown delicate ground covers face heavy foot traffic and washing rains. Spring conditions bring mud shifts, seedling displacement, and root instability that force young plants to fail before filling in. August planting solves that problem immediately. Warm late summer soil allows Mazus to anchor firmly into step crevices and paving gaps within days. The result is an ultra-low profile mat that handles foot traffic with ease. Another huge advantage is its miniature growth habit. It stays under 2 inches tall, completely eliminating the need for lawn mowing. That's why gardeners use it as a living mortar between flagstones and patio pavers. Busy homeowners also love its persistent spring-to-summer flowering habit. It covers itself in hundreds of tiny, orchid-like purple blossoms that bounce back immediately after being walked on. You get a vibrant, flowering walkway without delicate upkeep. Sometimes the secret to a maintenance-free path isn't solid concrete or loose gravel. It's living, self-healing ground cover roots. Moving down to number 4, we have Japanese forest grass, Hakonchloa macra. At number 4, we have Japanese forest grass. Most people picture ornamental grasses as aggressive, clump-forming plants best suited for sunny prairie landscapes. But surprisingly, planting Japanese forest grass in late summer produces a far more luxurious, cascading shade border than spring division ever could. Here's why. Spring divisions suffer from top growth stress. Early planting forces the plant to build tall leaves, stem structures, and flower panicles simultaneously, which forces roots to stunt due to limited energy. August planting solves that problem immediately. Foliage growth slows naturally while root energy remains peak active in warm summer soil. The result is explosive root expansion that yields massive, weeping golden clumps come spring. Another huge advantage is its dramatic texture contrast. The bamboo-like leaves flow like water over retaining walls and garden edges. That's one reason landscape architects rely on it to soften hard concrete edges. Busy gardeners also love its dynamic seasonal color transitions. It shifts from bright chartreuse in summer to deep copper and orange tones throughout autumn and winter. You get 3 seasons of vibrant color shifts from a single planting. Even better, its slow-creeping rhizomes spread steadily without ever becoming invasive or taking over neighboring perennials. It provides controlled, predictable coverage. It's one more example of how autumn root establishment provides refined elegance that quick-fix annuals often can't match. Sometimes the secret to high-end landscape design isn't planting massive mature specimens. It's timing your root growth so small plants explode with vigor. Breaking into the top 3, let's talk about Pachysandra Terminalis, Japanese spurge. Most people picture Pachysandra as a slow, static plant that takes years to establish a decent bed. But surprisingly, planting rooted cuttings in August produces a vastly denser, more uniform evergreen carpet than spring installations ever could. Here's why. Spring-planted Pachysandra struggles under rising sun angles and sudden heat spikes. Spring beds bring topsoil drying, sun-scorched stress, and slow root initiation that force young stems to turn yellow and stall out. August planting solves that problem immediately. Late summer shade coupled with warm ground temperatures lets rhizomes creep rapidly beneath the leaf litter. The result is deep green foliage that retains its color right through the winter freeze. Another huge advantage is absolute weed suppression. Once its dense umbrella-like leaves form a canopy, virtually zero light touches the soil beneath. That's why it's the gold standard for maintenance-free ground cover under massive shade trees. Busy homeowners also love its year-round evergreen permanence. It doesn't die back or melt away in winter, maintaining clean border structure 12 months a year. You get perpetual green cover without seasonal remulching. Even better, it thrives in dry shade conditions where most plants starve for water and light. It actively uses deep root networks to draw hidden subsoil moisture. It's one more example of how late summer root establishment provides reliability that turfgrass often can't match. Sometimes the secret to permanent landscape cover isn't fighting shade with shade-tolerant seed mixes. It's planting evergreen rhizomes that thrive in dark, root-filled soil. Coming in at number 2, we have Vinca minor periwinkle. Most people picture Vinca minor as an unruly, wild vine that takes over unwanted corners. But surprisingly, strategic late summer planting produces a much tighter, neat carpet with dramatically richer early spring flowering than spring planting ever could. Here's why. Spring planting triggers elongated, leggy vine growth at the expense of root anchorage. It causes weak soil contact, loose runners, and sparse leaf nodes that force the landscape to look spotty and unkept. August planting solves that problem immediately. The warm soil encourages root formation at every single vine node touching the dirt. The result is a dense, low-growing green carpet locked firmly into the earth before winter. Another huge advantage is its early spring bloom production. By establishing root systems in August, the plant spends late winter setting hundreds of flower buds that open into bright violet-blue blooms in early spring. That's one reason it's prized for planting beneath deciduous trees. Busy landscapers also love its extreme resilience against soil erosion. Its tangled root system acts like an underground net on steep, washing hillsides. You get a permanent slope stabilizer that looks gorgeous year-round. Even better, deer, rabbits, and typical garden pests completely ignore its glossy, leathery leaves. It stays untouched and green throughout every season. It's one more example of how autumn node rooting provides structural landscape stability that basic turf often can't match. Sometimes the secret to controlling slopes isn't building expensive retaining walls. It's establishing self-anchoring, evergreen vines. And finally, taking the crown at number 1, English ivy heterohelix, or for restricted areas, creeping myrtle/golden creeping jenny Lysimachia nummularia. If there is one category of fast-spreading perennials that truly seems designed for August establishment, this is it. Most people picture creeping jenny as a fragile basket plant that dies at the first frost. But surprisingly, getting creeping jenny rooted in warm August soil produces a far more aggressive, brilliant golden carpet than spring planting ever could. Here's why. Spring conditions are often too wet and cold for fast-spreading ground cover runners. Cold soil brings root rot risk, slow stolon production, and pale leaf growth that force the plant to sit dormant through crucial growing weeks. August planting solves that problem immediately. The high ground heat triggers an immediate spreading frenzy, sending bright lime-green runners creeping across bare soil in days. The result is an instantly golden, weed-blocking blanket locked down before frost. Another huge advantage is its incredible visual pop in dark garden beds. The bright yellow-green foliage reflects light into dark corners, making shade beds look instantly vibrant. That's why professional garden designers use it to frame dark pathways and dark-leaved plants. Busy homeowners also love its versatility around water features, damp low spots, and pond edges. It thrives in soils that stay too wet for other perennials, soaking up excess moisture effortlessly. You get rich golden cover where other plants rot away. Even better, it tolerates extreme moisture while simultaneously adapting to intermittent dry spells once rooted. Its runners root at every single leaf node, creating an unbreakable matrix of roots and golden foliage. It's the perfect example of how late summer planting doesn't limit ground cover density. Sometimes, late summer planting actually unlocks it. The biggest mistake many home gardeners make is assuming spring is the only time to plant ground covers for a lush landscape. But sometimes, working with warm late summer soil creates far better growing conditions. Faster root setup, natural weed suppression, zero summer heat stress, reduced watering needs, and far more total landscape control. That's why so many fast-spreading perennials actually thrive when planted in August. You don't need expensive lawn restoration projects or endless bark mulch to grow an impressive, lush yard. Sometimes, small perennial plugs planted at the right time can outperform massive spring landscaping projects. And once you experience how effortless late summer ground cover establishment can become, you'll start seeing bare dirt patches, shady tree bottoms, and steep erosion-prone slopes in a completely different way. Because successful landscaping isn't always about working harder during the spring rush. Sometimes, it's simply about using late summer soil heat more intelligently.